Hi everyone, and welcome to the Book Refuge, and welcome to my review and comparison of Outlander Season 4 to the fourth book in the Outlander series, Drums of Autumn. So this one, I have a few contentious things to say, like I did about Season 3, and it's hard for me to let go of things, and I definitely am one of those readers that especially when I have seen things done so beautifully and so much as I imagine it, to then have things change so sharply in certain ways, it really frustrates me, and it made a few of the episodes this year very hard for me to handle and not enjoy very much. But there are still aspects that are wonderful and scenes that feel directly from my mind to the screen. And so there's a balance, and we'll get into all of them. So as usual, we'll start off with the pros, and then we'll do the cons, and then I'll talk about my favorite scenes. So let us get going. We know how long these reviews are, and thank you to you who watches these. I know that they're not by any means the most popular books on my channel. In fact, they, perform pretty poorly, but to me it's important to have these out there because I am passionate about Outlander and about the TV show, and I'm not going to stop doing that. So all of you who support me and are enjoying these, I heart you so much. So let's get started. So the pros of season 4. I have all my notes right here. I have a lot of them. The first is the feel of America. So they had to shoot this in Scotland just because of, their shooting schedule, and most of their crew is all from there, and because of certain rules, and it was just easier to film in Scotland. And I feel like in the parts of it I've seen so far, it feels like other things I've seen take place in colonial America or pre-colonial or whatever time we're really in. I think it's colonial, not pre-colonial. Pre-colonial would be before all of that. Anyway, and honestly, in a lot of aspects, they just make it vibe really good for me. And America the Beautiful, especially certain parts of that episode, I really, really enjoyed it, and I felt like I was home. The atmosphere that the new intro creates really got me excited for what I was entering into, and I was so excited to watch this. So excited. Next pro is Jamie and Claire. So we're starting to really see the creation of what their relationship will be for the rest of their lives, as far as I know. I mean, I don't know when the end of their lives will be yet because it hasn't happened in the books. Praise the Lord. And for me, the shift in to this deeper, almost you are another part of my body kind of relationship, that thing you see in older couples who are still so in love, not older even, middle age, where they are really content with their other half, and there are still, things they want out of that relationship, things that they expect, but there's also so much freedom to be yourself because the other person, they fully accept you and are committed to you, and you're not afraid that they're going to leave you, and the only thing that's going to separate you is death. And even though death tries its hardest, what do we say to death? Not today. There's always an appropriate time for that quote. It's my favorite thing from Game of Thrones. So I really love seeing the creation of that, and Sam and Kat make me feel it. And I always am surprised by them because when there'll be an interview with them or something, they immediately just are younger. And I know that's what acting is for, but that's why I'm praising them and why I wish they were getting all of the Emmys, because the way that they take on the physicality of Jamie and Claire, the way they make me believe them as this middle-aged couple who has been through so much, who's been apart for so long, is so beautiful. I love it so much, and I'm so excited to see where that's going in the 5th season because the trailers have made me really excited so far. Next, Jocasta, however you will pronounce it. I love her in this show, And as I had shared in my review of Drums of Autumn, she's one of my least favorite parts of the book, actually. I don't really like Jocasta Cameron. Every time she pops up, I feel like she's causing problems. And I know we're really attached to her because she looks so much like Jamie's mother, and she is that like auntie mothering figure that we need. But do we need her? I don't know. But I really love how Doyle Kennedy, just forgot her first name, Maria Doyle Kennedy. I love how she plays her. I feel like she does her blindness very well. I feel like she is a very dignified woman, and I love her interactions with everyone. And I feel like they've tempered the irritation I feel with her by having this actress play her and do her a little bit softer and with not as much conniving. Like, there's still some because that's what her role is, but it's not as much conniving to the point where I am frustrated with her as I am in the book. And so I really love that. Next pro is Stephen Bonnet. And I know, but he's a pro for me because we're setting up an irritant, a villain, a person that we just can't quite get the full grasp of him or his motivations on the first go. And we see so many different sides of him within this season. And I really think Ed Speleers does such an amazing job making you believe each one of those facets. Like, when you meet him, we see a lot of parallels between him and Jamie. You're supposed to. That's what, makes Jamie free him in the beginning. We see him be a little bit charming, a little bit ruthless. We see him be sadistic. We see him be a rapist. We see him be honorable in some ways. And then we don't know what to make of him. And no matter who the character of Stephen Bonnet is, I feel that Ed Speleers embodies him so well, and I'm very excited to see what happens more with him in the future, having just done my reread of The Fiery Cross, and I'm very excited to see him get to portray those aspects of the character. And it's nice to have a villain that you never know what he's gonna do. Like, Blackjack was evil, and there are some aspects of him that surprised us, but for the most part, he was like a one-shot arrow. There was one thing that he wanted, to break Jamie Fraser, and that's all that he was after in the whole book of Outlander. And I just think Stephen Bonnet has so many more layers going to him, and I think it's amazing. So I really enjoyed his portrayal and the different parts of him we see as he interacts with each of our four main characters at different times and to different things, but they all screw him over in different ways. Literally. Anyway. Pros also, there are more lines from the book than I was expecting, and I feel like when they come up, they're so good. One of my favorites is the one that keeps playing like on all of the like ads for Stars, is for the 24th anniversary gift that Jamie gives to Claire. And when he talks about just like, I loved you from the moment I saw you, and I'm going to love you for the rest of my life. And the way that Sam, just all of this here, and his chemistry with Kat will never be denied. And that's one of the things I think is the more people you see who like ship the real life actors, which I don't think that we should do. I mean, I was guilty of it when I was a kid too, but as soon as people start to have partners in real life, it's time to stop. Like, Kat's married. It's time to be done with that. But that comes from how great their chemistry is as friends and as actors and as people doing an amazing job portraying that. And so I just love that so much, and I think they do an amazing job together. And everyone, sorry, I already talked about Jamie and Claire. I meant to just say how well they deliver the lines, and I got sucked right back in. So, okay, so now we're going to go into my cons, which I kind of have a lot. I know I just did all the praising, but that's because that's fun, but I have some things to share. So the first for me, and I'm actually going to talk about 2 episodes specifically that were big cons for me. Oh, first I'll say the CGI for the riverboat scenes, specifically in America the Beautiful and then in The Birds and the Bees. Ooh, it's so bad. Like, I honestly wish they had found a different way to do the riverboat if that's how they were going to do it, because it's so distracting when you watch it that it makes some really intense, powerful scenes kind of stupid, and I don't appreciate that. I don't know if they could have just like had the scenes be at night on the river instead, but oh my gosh, it's horrible. So it threw me out a couple times, and that doesn't usually happen when I'm watching Outlander. Next, Do No Harm. I hate this episode, and I hate it for a lot of reasons. Number one, of all the things that we could skip, you know, we get less and less episodes every season. It feels like, you know, we had 16 and then 13 and 13, and now we're going to be like down to 12 season episodes. And the things that we need to cut, I just feel like Do No Harm, number one, didn't happen in the same way it happens in the book. I think it's much more powerful in the book because everything that happens, Claire thinks through in her head and then makes the decision, and then it's over. And then there's fallout from that decision she makes. But the way it gets drawn out and the way it just wants to like hammer home like how evil everyone is, like we all know that is evil. And that's the reason why like Claire doesn't want Jamie to be the heir to River Run, because she doesn't like being slave owner or will want to be married to someone, and they can't just let them go because of the rules, the laws that were in place. Literally, like, he could end up in jail if he did that, or all the slaves could be retaken by someone else anyway. Like, there's all these rules, and they suck, and it's horrible, and it's a horrible part of our history, and we all agree. But the way the Do No Harm episode was done, where she saves him and then they give him over, and someone says to her, they're like, it's a cruel for you to do this surgery on him with no way to put him out, and then they're going to kill him anyway. And Claire knows that in the books. In the books, she asks Jamie, if I save him, will they let him live? And he says no. And so she does the same thing that she does in the show, but she does it in the moment. She doesn't make him suffer, and it's all done. And instead, we have this where she does this brutal surgery on him while he's alive, and then still does a mercy killing before he gets hanged. And it makes Claire look so much more like, I know they're trying to show her like fighting against it to make it different, but in the book, she's more concerned about the person it's happening to and that he has a peaceful end than her trying to make a point. And that's how it feels for me. But they don't zoom in on the aspect of her where the reason Claire isn't working at the beginning of Dragonfly and Amber is that she was put on a leave of absence for doing a mercy killing to one of her patients. And so that's not set up at all. And so there's no like pattern of her doing that. And like, I just don't know, because it set me off on such a sour note to the season. And it was very hard for me to get past it. Like, I hated it. I hated it so much. So enough of that. I spent way too much time talking about it, but I despise that episode so much. I skip it every time now. And then The False Bride. And so this one I don't outright hate this, but there are a few things that I dislike. One, the part of Jamie and Claire where her interactions with Ottertooth are this weird, like, dreamlike thing. And the thing they do with her shoes is super different, where, like, just how they do that whole episode is weird. Like, I wish they had just like had her stumble across his skull in a different way instead of still doing the thunderstorm and having the horse run away, but then his like weird like vision of him. And I like that they're bringing the aspects of magic back in, but to me it was very powerful in the book when like Rollo woke up in the night and followed the trail back to her, and her shoes were sitting on the front of the house, and they didn't have their house built yet in the book. So maybe that's why, but it could have been outside their tent or something like that. because it's really powerful that she had lost her shoes and her shoes are sitting perfectly by her tent, and Rollo follows the trail back to where she is and they're able to get her out instead of her like stumbling her way back to Jamie. So I don't like that. Also, I don't like how they do Roger and Bree in this episode. And this sets up more cons that I'm going to talk about, and that is a mishandling of Roger and Brianna. And this is my biggest failing in season 4 and the most painful for me because, as you'll recall from the book review, I adore Brianna Fraser. I adore Roger Wakefield Mackenzie. And they are some of my favorite characters going forward in this series. And I think they mishandle their interactions. They don't let them have a lot of them. They don't stretch out their interactions. You don't see that it's like a year of them talking and building things up. They don't set up the timeline super well in this season either, whereas in the book, you're very clear of like how time goes and that in total, like Claire has been gone for 2 years by the time Brianna gets back to them. But I don't like how it's so hard to explain it in a way, but like Brianna, they don't explain her reasoning well for her actions the way that the book does. They make her seem like kind of impulsive and weak and whiny. And these are all things people say about Brie before there was ever a TV show, but I always disagreed with them because I related to Brie so much and I could see the growth and changes she was going through and the grief of losing her dad and then losing her mother and then finding her mother and her father. And I just feel like they make her seem like angry or whiny or all these things. And she goes through a lot. But Brie is very resilient and she will always blame herself for everything until someone tells her otherwise. And I just don't like it. And I don't like that they make Roger seem like such a jerk because he does some jerky things and he makes mistakes. But again, because we get chapters from Brie and Roger's point of view, I always understand where they're coming from. And Roger, his not sleeping with Brie and saying like, I want all of you or none at all, they don't break up after this. Like they part because she needs to finish school and she's worried about going back in time. And like, she's worried about loving him and then finding a true love because that's what happened to her mom. And it's perfectly reasonable because she thought her family's love was set up well. And the things that they like don't explain to me or show you is like in the show, in the book, when Roger is debating whether he's going to come back or not, and then he does come back, and we get a significant amount of time of him being back before they have the gathering at the end, which I believe that's spilling over into season 5. But she doesn't like jump for joy when she sees him because she thinks he's come back out of obligation. And she has this beautiful line to Lord John, which is why she tries to marry Lord John, is because she doesn't want Roger to like have to choose her out of obligation, which she doesn't quite think that through, but she tells John that I would have been okay with a marriage of obligation before, but I've seen one that is out of love and devotion and passion, and I can't settle for the other one anymore. And so even though that would make her an unwed mother and would cause a whole bunch of problems for her family and herself, now being stuck back in time, she will not let Roger choose her out of pity or obligation. She needs him to be coming for her out of love. And I think that makes her so strong. And in the show, they just have her run into his arms and he's like, I'm sorry it took me so long. Let me see my son. And like, that's it. And I don't like it. So I think I've rambled through a lot there. I didn't just talk about the false bride. I talked about Roger and Brie. But my next one was Brie. And I feel like she's not done justice. And it's so frustrating. And I talked about that enough. Okay, I actually went through a lot of this. A couple more things. One, I think the Indian conflict is not as strong as they make it in the show. Like, they really make there be a lot of friction with them, and I feel like there's not as much in the book. I think the Frasers get along really well because Jamie is pretty friendly with them. There aren't any confrontations with them about land or about any of this. Like, they have great interactions, and it isn't until they have to go get Roger back and they Roger kills one of these people when he's trying to escape, and that's why they ask a life for a life. It's not because they're distrustful of them or like all this crap is going on. It's because Roger caused problems and they need payment for that, and that's what leads to them taking Ian or making a trade for Ian. And I just don't like that there has to be conflict, because there is conflict between the people taking over Indian land, but there also was peace. And there also was trading, and there also was a lot of good aspects too. And I feel like it's a cliche to make it be natives versus, new Americans. And I just didn't like it, because in the book, I was really looking for that in this reread, and there isn't a ton of it. And I just don't like that they use that for the conflict when there are other conflicts in the book. There are other conflicts happening besides needing this. Next, the hardest con. Murtaugh. I love Murtaugh. Everyone should have a Murtaugh. But Murtaugh's dead, guys. And the waves that are being created by keeping this character alive are going to cause problems until he's dead. And so now, instead of him having died in an honorable battle, fighting for his country, where we remember him and we love him, he's alive. And he's in a relationship with Jocasta, which is super hot, but not necessary. And he's on the opposite side of Jamie, because Jamie needs to bide his time before becoming a revolutionary. He needs to keep his family safe for this time. And now Jamie's being sent to hunt down Murtaugh. I hate it. I hate it so much. And I was all for all the fun feels that we got for having Murtaugh in the beginning, but seeing the ramifications and seeing the displeasure that Diana has that he's still alive, which if you've watched some of the interviews with her about it, it's pretty funny, and also she sends a lot of shade. And I understand, but also no. And I don't like the divergence they're taking with this. I think it's a mistake. I think we're going to pay for it in season 5 by either Jamie being responsible for Murtaugh being dead, which would be effing disastrous, or them having a break completely because Jamie can't support what Murtaugh's doing. I really, really don't like it, and it frustrates me every time, because I love the character who plays him, and yes, or the person who plays the character, and I love him, but he can't be there, and I'm really worried about what is going to be ruined going forth by keeping him alive, and I hate it. Finally, just saying about these cons, like, I know I need to let go of some things. That's not what this review is about, though. This is comparing the two, and I'm showing you the things that I dislike. But it's just very hard for me when Diana has written some of the best books I've ever read in my life. And I think the conflict and the character development and all of those things are all there. And I feel like the show wants to make itself too independent in some ways. I think there's a lot of tension in like the writers and creators and showrunners with Diana, who has a legion of fans behind her who fight for all of these things. And I just wish that they could get along and like stop trying to make shit up when Diana has good stuff going already. And I feel like in past seasons, some of the things they changed didn't end up having a huge overarching change to the series. But now we're going to start seeing that, and it makes me nervous. And it's actually why I'm doing the episode by episode review coming season 5, because of this. So now let's talk. Oh, one other thing. Holy crap. The Frank stuff was totally dropped from this season. There's just a few little parts with him where we remember things about him, where Bree has remembrances of her dad. But there's a through line in this book, because this book is about fathers and fatherhood. It's about Jamie and his children. It's about Roger and Stephen, who's the parent of the baby. It's about Bree trying to be honorable to both of her fathers, and feeling like she needs to be faithful to her dad who's dead, but yet she's met her dad and he's wonderful and doesn't know what to do about it. And there's a through line of Frank, and we get to see that he wasn't so perfect as the show wants us to think he is. And they drop it, that the fact that he knew that Jamie was alive and he hid it from them. And the fact that he was trying to take Bree away from her mom. And the fact that, anyway, I love that Roger memorized the letter in the book and that he shares it with Brianna and Jamie and Claire, and like they get to know about this. And even though, and I think part of it is that Frank's ring isn't the one that gets taken in the show. It's Jamie's, which makes sense because his is more immediately recognizable and you understand why. Where in the book, it just happens that Brianna basically stumbles up to the table and like sees where it says Frank loves Claire inside the ring. But because of that, like Claire is afraid to show Jamie the ring and that she still cares about it so much. And Jamie eventually like tells her to keep it and tells her, I am a greedy man and I would take you from him, but I wouldn't take him from you. And tells her to continue to honor Frank and that he was her husband too. And I think it has some wonderful moments between them and it's amazing. So, favorite scenes. I'm just going to kind of go through these pretty quickly. I already mentioned the anniversary scene. I like the Bonnet attack. I don't like it, you know what I mean? But I liked how it was filmed, that it wasn't filmed in a gratuitous manner, and that it was still so impactful, and it just gives you chills, and it just hurts you to see it all, to like not see it as much as it, and just see the aftermath as it would if they showed us this, because we've already seen brutal rapes before, and we will see them again. But I thought that it was done very interesting, and it was a very powerful scene. Bree meeting Jamie, guys, they do that so well. It was great. John and Bree, Lord John Grey, all of their interactions are great. I love when she threatens him and he's like, oh my gosh, I should prove to you that I am a man and I can take care of my wife if you think this is just going to be like, you know, a loveless marriage or whatever. And I just love that he's taking care of her. And they don't go into as like deep of it in the book because they don't need to, or I mean in the show as they do in the book, but just making it clear that, you know, and what he's able to share with her, that he adopted a son that isn't his by blood at all. It's Jamie's son, and then was his wife's nephew, and he loves him more than any other person on earth. And I think that shows her that her father, Frank, loved her, and Roger will love Jemmy, and it'll be great. The wedding/handfast scene with Roger and Bree, I think they do that really well. I think they ruin it afterwards, but it was kind of like watching your kids have sex, which is weird because both of these people are like older than me, but it's just different seeing other people have romantic moments than like Claire and Jamie, but I love it. I think it's beautiful and tender, and I look forward to more of their scenes together in the future. And then the man of worth scene when Jamie tells Ian that he is a man of worth. And I love like that he makes it through the gauntlet and he's home. He's a member of this tribe and they're going to welcome him in and love him. And he's already been really interested in their culture. He really sympathizes with them, connects with them, and he's found a home. And I can't wait to see what will happen with him. They didn't introduce us to Emily right away, but I'm sure we'll see or know more about her later on. And then the scene after that, where one of my favorite lines is when Jamie says, "You've cost me a man I love, so be worthy of it." Because he doesn't know who Roger is yet, and he's just had to trade his nephew and surrogate son for this man because he made a mistake on misinformation, but he made a mistake and he owes his daughter, but it cost him someone he loved. But Ian did it out of love for all of them. because he knew that he was the one who could do it. Whereas for Claire to lose Jamie would be too much. So overall, it's hard for me with this season because it's mixed with so much I love and so much I despise. I guess I don't despise anything, but it's pretty intense. So anyway, this is my review and comparison of season 4. Be on the lookout. The Fiery Cross review will be up next week because we're going to start the episode by episode reviews starting in just the next Monday after that. As soon as I'm able to watch it and get the review up, it'll be up there for you guys. So I'm very excited, super excited for it to be happening. So I put up new videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, and you can get all the Outlander content and bookish content here. Have a great day.